Martha stood outside the gates, cold and hungry. She had just walked 25 miles north of Marseille, France, leaving behind her sister, Mary Magdalene, and her brother, Lazarus. You might have heard of these people before in a book called the Bible. And you've probably heard of a guy named Jesus, who was their friend. Mary, Martha, and Lazarus were devout followers of Jesus. Unfortunately, their friend died. And after that, they were forced to flee their small town of Bethany in a boat from Jerusalem. Miraculously, their boat arrived upon the shores of Gaul, and Martha, Mary, and Lazarus, although still grieving over the death of their friend, knew that it was time to start over and continue the good works that he had taught them. As Martha stood shivering outside the gates, thankfully they opened, and she was greeted by peaceful villagers that offered her food and shelter and warmth. After a couple months, Martha had really started to give back to her new community. She was cooking potluck dinners every Wednesday night, making the best casseroles and feeding the poor. She co-created the first community library, handing out books to the children and reading to them. And she also started the first a cappella singing group on the weekends, teaching the townspeople to sing. Martha had finally found a new home, and things were good. One morning, while Martha was walking into town, she heard a strange sound coming from the woods. La Tarasque! La Tarasque! Martha, intrigued, slowly walked forward to investigate. When she found an old fisherman bloody and soaking wet, she picked him up and carried him to the nearest town healer. When she asked him how he had come to be this way, what had caused his injuries, all he could say was, La Tarasque, La Tarasque. Not long after this strange incident occurred, Martha learned that according to legend, La Tarasque, or the Tarasque, for those of you that don't speak French, was a terrifying monster with the head of a lion, horns of an ox, a turtle shell on its back, and a large scorpion tail with a chitinous tip, and 6 tiny little bear legs. Martha was very intrigued, but also a little scared. A few days later, the fisherman recovered from his injuries, and he called a large gathering in the town square and told everyone to come. Martha attended, unsure of what he was going to say. The old fisherman slowly approached the pulpit, and then he passionately pleaded, "We must kill this monster. It will break the dams and flood our town. It will eat your children." Eventually, the man had the entire town in a frenzy. Martha, everyone was looking at her, and she said, "I don't believe that we should kill this animal. We don't know that much about it, and you may not have experienced this, but I have experienced miracles through good works." A town elder shouted at her, "If you believe in these miracles so much, why don't you go to the caves and find this beast and perform them?" Wasn't exactly what Martha was hoping for, but she decided to go because she was tired of seeing another town consumed by fear. With her oil lamp trembling, Martha walked through the swamps and the wet, spongy land. She crossed streams, went around trees, and then she approached the mouth of a giant cave. And that is when she saw it. The head of a lion, horns of an ox, a giant scorpion-like tail and a turtle shell on its back, and 6 tiny little bear legs. Martha began to sing. All creatures of our God and King, lift up your voices, let us sing. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Martha touched the mane of the Tarasque. Thou burning sun with golden beam, thou silver moon with softer gleam. Alleluia, alleluia, alleluia. The Tarasque had shut its eyes and began to produce a low hum as Martha stroked its mane. And Martha began to relax herself. The town was saved for now. When the fisherman, she could see in the light of the oil lamp, with a harpoon is in his hand, and he came forward and stabbed the Tarasque in its neck. Martha reached forward, grabbing the harpoon, giving it a hard yank to ease its suffering. The Tarasque moaned and died. Martha looked at the fisherman, and the fisherman looked at Martha, and he took off, running back to the village. Martha grabbed her lamp and went through the woods, crossing the streams, around the trees. When she got to the center of the town, she was yelling so loudly the entire town awoke and surrounded them. Martha looked at the fisherman. Why? Why did you do this? He was calm. I had it under control. Your act of savagery is no better than the beast itself. You did this. You did this out of fear. Problems do not go away by just killing them. You killed him. You killed him. You killed him. The town felt ashamed for what the fishermen had done to the Tarasque. So they named their town Tarasque after the beast himself. Today, there is a statue in Tarasque that you can see with the head of a lion, horns of an ox, a giant turtle shell on its back, and a large chitinous tail reaching around its body with a scorpion tip, and 6 tiny little bear legs.